Welcome to Above and Beyond with Laura Smith, the show that takes you above and beyond with the world's most transformational thinkers, top celebrity psychics, mediums, and astrologers. Call in now for a free reading. 800-848-WABC. That's 800-848-9222. Let's go above and beyond. Here's Laura Smith.
Here I am, 77 WABC. Welcome to Above and Beyond with Laura Smith, the program that's fairly new. We're about a month in now. And we not only give free live readings on the air from the world's literally best psychics and mediums, we also give you a great transformational, inspirational conversation with wonderful people who really I have met over the years of my life and who've changed my life so much. I've wanted to bring them to you and bring you topics that you may not normally hear on WABC radio, but are nonetheless lovely, lively, vibrant, and important in their own right. I want to thank Jake Hirsch for opening the show tonight, as he always does. And I want to tell you that our resident medium, Mr. Thomas John, is going to be here at 7:15 taking your calls, giving you live readings on the air. He's a celebrity psychic medium, and he is traveling all over the planet, basically, with his brand new book, Never Argue with a Dead Person, True and Unbelievable Stories from the Other Side. So he's going to be here. We're going to have a great time with him. And again, as I said, giving you live readings. The number to call for one is 800-848-WABC, 800-848-9222. But before we do that, again, we go to what I call transformation and inspiration with great information. And my friend Elana Kilkenny is so many things in one. It's kind of hard to put your finger on all of it. But really, she's an intuitive counselor who also coaches people on sacred space. So creating sacred space within your own home, but she's an intuitive counselor as she does it, and she also gives amazing readings. She has a fantastic program coming up at ABC Carpet and Home here in Manhattan, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with it, is one of the most, I think, sacred home stores on the planet. It really is the most beautiful, beautiful place. And so she's going to be there next Saturday giving intuitive readings and also helping people with sacred space. So without any further information at all out of me, how about you? Elana Kilkenny, thank you so much for being here today.
Laura, it's such a deep pleasure to be here and to share with your amazing circle of people some things about sacred home and to help perhaps all of you to look at your home through different eyes. And so part of that would be to look at your home as a place that really nourishes who you are now, but also to think of your home as a place that potentially can inspire who you're becoming and what you dream your life to be. And if your home becomes a tapestry of conversation and dialogue between you and your dreams, it becomes very alive, not only in it being very nurturing and beautiful and functional, but also literally that's where some magic kind of comes into it in terms of manifesting what you desire.
Well, that's you. So for people who are hearing Elana Kilkenny for the first time, she really is she's like a goddess, alchemist. But again, she does these home projects and helping people. When you say the word sacred in terms of home, I think people are kind of thinking, what do you mean? Like I have to make it like a religious space, or it has to be quiet like a monastery? No, define sacred as it speaks to your heart.
Yes. To me, it actually is the antithesis of that. In fact, a lot of my design is actually very colorful and joyous and vibrant, and has nothing to do, unless the person is religious, with anything religious. And so sacred to me means deep meaning. It means deeply in touch with your heart. It means deeply in touch with who you are as a person and your dreams. It means something that is deeply meaningful and symbolic often. So the spaces that I work with are homes. They're homes, and they're people businesses, and they're people who run the gamut from financial advisors to artists to families. And so it's about how do you take it away from not being an apartment or a house, but actually how do you create a home where you really feel at home and where you can get more in touch with who you are and what you want. And in that way, there's a dialogue that happens in the space itself. You know.
Well, some people might say, is that feng shui? And that might be confusing for some people. What's the difference between just creating sacred home and feng shui? Are you using feng shui cures, as they say? Because we had the feng shui guy, R.A.L. Town, on a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, that's what he does. He literally does the Western version of that ancient, Eastern tradition of feng shui. But are you not necessarily practicing that? So how would you go into somebody's home and make it more sacred or make it meaningful to them when it's their space? How can you put your ideas into somebody's space and have it be theirs?
Yes. So there's two ways to also answer that. So in terms of feng shui, I started off as a feng shui designer and did study traditionally. And so that's part of my toolbox. But I go in really as an intuitive now and as somebody also who has more interior design sensibility, which not all feng shui is. A lot of people also think of feng shui as certain color themes, certain corners for certain things, and also often more wind chimes and other cures that are more traditionally Chinese. And so while I was doing that for the first few years of my work, now I actually go in more as a psychic and as an intuitive, and I do a reading of someone's home and of the people who live there. So an example, I go in, and it's pretty fluid, but usually it does include first a reading of the actual space itself, about the energy of the space, maybe some predecessor energy if there's something having to do with that, but also how the actual space is interacting, if you will, with the people who live there. And information comes in about people's lives, about the patterns in people's lives, about what's helping them, about what's not helping them, and how that's being shown in the actual environment. And then we really go into often the design of the space. And this is where some feng shui comes into the placement, but it's not always along the lines of feng shui dictum. And it also has to do with then looking at the art and looking at the colors and trying to find a dialogue that's interior design oriented in terms of what rugs, what bedding, maybe even what corners do we make a little room of your own, if you will. For those of us in New York City, need corners, not necessarily rooms, where it really speaks to who you are. It looks beautiful, and it also functions with your life. And so, for instance, you could have a beautiful home that's in, Architectural Digest, but let's say, for instance, it's very spare and perfect where everything is. And let's say the art is really expensive and wonderful, or just of a certain feeling, but the art maybe is radiating and showing symbols of things that you're trying to get away from in your life, but you're very comfortable with. So from a design point of view, it might be perfect and beautiful. It might even make you feel comfortable, right? Because sometimes we're comfortable with where we are in our lives, but it's not nurturing really who we're wanting to be and maybe what kind of relationships we want. So we look at all that, and it's a layered process of how do we make it beautiful? How do we make it functional? But also, how do the symbols and the way that our home is speaking to us, how does it really raise us to the joy and the love that we want in our lives, as well as the success that we want in our lives?
Right. So there's other layers than just interior design to it as well. I had lunch with a friend today who said that, and she's in an apartment that, just like you said, like New York, and it doesn't have enough rooms, and now her family has 3 children in it. Right. So her mother-in-law was bemoaning the fact that it's too bad you don't have a dining room anymore, because the dining room has been replaced by all toys, and it's become the play area for the kids, and there's really no place for the family to congregate as a family to eat meals together anymore. What do you do when there are truly real spatial issues? How do you create something wonderful and functional at the same time and try to keep things in perspective?
Well, I love that question, because I'm a mother who lives in a limited space in New York City as well. And so part of it is first just getting clear about the way you live and about what's important to you in terms of space allocation. And then it's about being creative. So, for instance, most likely having a table to eat is important, and there's ways around that. There might only be room for even a fold-down table or something like that, and even places like IKEA have great solutions for that, and then there's high-end solutions as well. But a lot of that then has to do with clutter, and it then has to do with also just life. Toys aren't clutter necessarily, they're just part of life. So there's a lot of great creative solutions that I try to use to still make that beautiful. And part of it is also teaching people that more is not always better, even for their children in terms of their creativity. So it's about rotating toys sometimes, and maybe, either getting rid of certain toys that really aren't being used, or putting it somewhere else if you do have a little bit of storage. Most of us have some storage. But then it's using maybe beautiful baskets or things that you wouldn't normally use for toy storage as ways where it still is beautiful, but it also organizes the toys in a way where the kids actually use it more creatively. But having some kind of designated space is useful, but it can be part of a room where there's play. Our dining room has toys as well, but it's in just even a little corner of it in a certain way. And it's getting also the kids used to a routine. Part of it's, again, life in terms of they play with it, and then we clean up. And that's just part of it. And that shows also good habits, but it also keeps the space before dinner time we clean up. So that we actually have a place so we can actually talk and not feel so distracted by that.
And so for people who say, well, I have no design sense at all, and then they hire somebody like you to come in, and again, they want to create a type of atmosphere where they feel comfortable, but they have no clue what they're doing. How do they know that you're doing the right thing for them and you're selecting the right things? I mean, what is it that you do in terms of you're reading them and their family that can help them feel comfortable with your design choices?
Yeah, well, part of it is we always start with a conversation. And so we always start a conversation about what's working in their lives and about what maybe is not working in their lives, but also get a sense of how we walk through the space, about how they flow with their space, how they live in their space. And where the intuitive part helps a whole lot is I'm able to glean a lot very fast about what's helping them and not. I also am able to look at what they currently have and kind of see the gold in it and get a sense of their style. I often will even have people wear their favorite outfits or bring in other elements or design questionnaire to get a sense of what music do they listen to, what foods do they love, what are their favorite restaurants. And it gives me a sense of also what their style is. So I feel like my job is actually not to impose my style on them, but to actually help bring out who they are, not only visually, but also who they are at their hearts, and usually push them a little bit beyond their comfort zone. So I have a client, for instance, who had lots of neutrals in her home, but all I kept on seeing around her was just this really colorful personality. But we had to find a way to still bring in those, very comfortable neutrals that she loved and accent it with
vibrant colors.
With vibrant colors and pop it. For other people, they handle and they actually want more of the vibrance. For other people, the neutrals, but with texture to give it a more warmth, really helps. So part of it is really tuning in to who they are and finding a vocabulary stylistically so that they feel at home. It's not me coming in and saying this is what it should look like. It's what would you, if you knew how to create this, how would you create this?
Okay, and you support them in that. So the other intuitive counseling sessions that you do on Skype as well as over the phone or only in person, and how far do you travel to do this kind of work?
Yes. So the intuitive counseling, if it's in person, people come to me in New York City. And I also work with people worldwide via Skype for the intuitive counseling sessions. And then the home sessions are in the base. Usually they're in the tri-state area, but I do travel at times for that as well. And there's some actually sessions that we can do via Skype. And the way we do it is we do a combination of the Skype and of them doing some videos. And I have a very clear list of what I want them to photograph and videotape for me. And that's where the intuitive part helps as well, because I can tune in a lot to the space regardless of where they are and help them that way.
Wonderful. Tell us a little bit about this event that's happening next Saturday at ABC Carpet and Home before you leave us.
Yes. ABC, like you said, is just an emporium of beauty and gorgeousness, really. It's just lush. You walk in there and you're just inspired. So next Saturday, May 2nd, from 9:30, starting at 9:30, they are having an event where I'm doing mini readings starting from 1 to 4.
You're doing the what readings?
I'm sorry, I'm doing intuitive counseling readings.
Okay.
From 1 to 4, but the sign up begins at the beginning of the event at 9:30, and it does tend to book up, so get there early. And the great thing about getting there at the beginning of the event is there's actually a treasure trove of speakers and both on inspirational notes, but also there's a whole beauty consultant where they do facials and things with people like Tata Harper and Tracy Martin and things like that. So my part again is from 1 to 4. Sign up begins at 9:30, and I'm going to do mini 20-minute intuitive counseling readings for people there.
20-minute ones. That's actually quite long.
Yes. Yes, we decided that we actually want to give some people more meat on what we can do and delve in.
Wonderful. And ABC Carpet and Home is the one you're talking about is down in Flatiron District?
Down in the Flatiron District, 19th and Broadway.
19th and Broadway. I know they have a like an outlet store, I believe, up in the Bronx or something as well. But this one is the one, 19th and Broadway. Again, it's next Saturday, starting at 9:30. If they want an intuitive reading with you between 1 and 4 p.m., they have to sign up early around 9:30 in order to be able to get on that list.
Exactly. And you also have to sign up and purchase the tickets ahead of time, because at a certain point, once they sell out, and I think it's a day before the event, they actually close off registration. And so you can go to ABC Carpet and Home's website under events, And when you get to Beauty, Wellness, and Wisdom, that's where you can buy your tickets.
Well, that's you in a nutshell. Beauty, wellness, and wisdom,
Thank
and
you, my
so
dear.
much more. Thank you. Elana Kilkenny is her name, and she is the Sacred Home Advisor and also intuitive counselor. And you can reach her at any time by going to her email address, which is Elana Kilkenny. And I'm going to spell that for you. Elana, Elana Kilkenny, which is Kilkenny. So Elana Kilkenny at yahoo.com. And you can reach her there and get her all her information to have either the intuitive counseling or the sacred home, or she'll come to you, or you can do it on Skype or whatever. But again, it's Elana Kilkenny at yahoo.com. I'm going to put that up on our podcast page as well. If you go to Above and Beyond with Laura Smith on Facebook, or Above and Beyond with Laura Smith on WABCradio.com. We'll be sure and put a little blurb there with her name and her email address for all of you. Elana, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure, Laura.
Have a wonderful event at ABC Carpet and Home next week. All right. Much love. We are going to come back with the incredible Manhattan medium. His name is Thomas John, and you are familiar with him because he's been here often before, but it never, ever gets old to get a reading from him. 800-848-WABC. 800-848-9222. This is a program called Above and Beyond with Laura Smith, and we take you there. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. It's 77 WABC.